Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Knowledge or Nonsense. I'm your host, Kenneth Campbell. It's 8 o'clock. You know what that means? It's time to talk. Just wanted to get right back to it. We had a great show last week, and we were talking about training and standards and just evolving a new employee, getting them acclimated to a department, and it led to so many spirited discussions that we just wanted to make sure that we touched on some of what everybody said. So this week, I have some very, very special guests that I'm inviting. I, I don't even know how to just put into words what it means to have these two individuals here. I have invited Miss Sarah B. Cruz. I have invited Mr. Jessie Lopez, and I'm so excited for what we're going to do for y'all today. How many times in your departments have you heard somebody say, that's always the way we've done it? It frustrates everybody. I get it. So today we're going to talk about why are we saying that? What does the standard say? What can we do to get that thought process out of people's head? My guest today will help us dive into some of that. I know that they're both educators and they would have some really good information I know that we're going to put out there for everybody. So without further ado, let me welcome in Mr. Jessie Lopez and Miss Sarah B. Cruz.
What's going on? What's going
Hi.
on?
What's going on, family? What's going on?
Nothing much, nothing much.
I know that y'all heard briefly what I was saying. Just a recap from last week. I know y'all might have some ideas about what we were discussing. We were talking about new person hired. The culture didn't run them away. They want to stay. Now it's time for us to train them. What does that look like? I had a lot of discussion with different individuals last week, but that's just a recap. I want to know what you do as an educator. How do you get that person trained? Jessie, if you will.
All right. Well, I mean, let's put it this way. In the facility that I'm at right now, we have a very unique program where we train our technicians in-house. So we have a CSP 101 program where we take individuals within the hospital that want to grow within the hospital. So we bring them into CSP and we give them all the book work. We do 3 days of book work, 2 days of on-hand training that it's lineated with the chapters that we're learning. So that they can get certified, get ready for that PET test and become certified and work in sterile processing. So we're all over the place. So depending on which chapter we're at in the book, that's where we're at. That's where we're training. That's what we're learning. And we're in there, understanding the whys as to what we do. We're doing it, and I'm explaining the whys as we do it. So it follows the book. It follows the book from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 24. We're talking about regulations. We're looking in the department where those regulations and those standards hold place and should be followed. So that's how our training program is geared around.
So real quick, do you have preceptors or are you the actual trainer?
I am the educator. I am the trainer. I see them all the way through to a year into their career. I'm with them all the way through.
Okay, Sarah, same question.
Hi. Okay, so first I just got to get like the fangirl over. I love being on the Knowledge and Nonsense Network and the StreamYard platform. You guys do such a good job hosting everything, and I love this time to talk because I feel like so much of sterile processing is talking, but I almost feel like you should have an underscore in the title that's like time to talk with action, because I've listened to the last 2 shows and it's all full of actionable steps, and that's my love language. So when I train and educate in my healthcare system, I do a lot of actionable steps. We make it very clear what's expected of the professional. We have a 4 to 6 month onboarding program and an accelerated program depending on where you are in your own professional career coming into our facility. We have the luxury of having a influx of professionals with experience coming certified to our facilities now, which is typically unseen. Usually you get a lot of greenies or individuals who've never heard of sterile processing. So we wanted to make sure that we created unique programs that covered department culture, onboarding, training, and they're not the same thing. Onboarding and training is not the same thing, and it's not the same thing as orientation. We've also created a robust traveler onboarding so that we can get them quickly acclimated to the way we do it, not the way we've always done it. So very hands-on training. I am an education coordinator, so I develop the program used to implement the training. And then I have my right-hand man. His name is Chris Johnson. He's on LinkedIn. You guys should all go follow him. He's the bomb. And he's our dedicated preceptor. So if the coffee's in my left hand, Chris is in my right. He's doing the will there, and he does a lot of the hands-on training and making sure that we are meeting the goals of the quality management system put in place and the end goals for our department.
Okay, I like both ideas there. So just gonna go back and ask the question that was asked of everybody last week. Where do you start? Is it on the table? Is it decon? Where do they start?
The tables. Yeah, I got so excited because I heard last week, and Sharon was talking about some of the analytics that you and her worked on, which is an awesome aspect of this show too. Like, I love quantifiable data like that. That's like, nothing is nothing without a data to back it up, because it's just a feeling, right? I digress. But we do 3 to 4 weeks on the tables to make sure that we are introducing the professional into the culture of our department, to make sure that they like where they work, because I think there's this misconception that after the 4 months, 6 months, we're just deciding if we're going to keep you, but you are also deciding if you're going to stay with us. And if we want to pull the type of quality candidate, we want to make sure that they know everyone's name, right? I want to put them in the safest environment on assembly, technically speaking, where things are supposed to be clean. There are no sharps. It's up to us to make sure that they are learning instrument names or being acclimated to using their flushes, and do they know how to use brushes? So making sure that they're fully understanding that part of the process before we put them in decon to clean the instruments that they've never seen before, let alone know the name, and then put the set back together. So we start on the tables. We've had a great return on investment, and we've also found more anchor employee creation. So people who have started on the tables stay with our facility longer than those that have not.
Okay. Jessie?
I'm going to be the devil's advocate.
Jessie, it wouldn't be a show, my dude. You know how
That's
we
right.
go.
That's right. The savage is going to come out. I'm putting them in decon. I'm putting them in decon. Well, I told you we followed a book. We followed a book in a chapter. And if you read chapter 1, the first thing they talk about is what we do. We're cleaning. All right. So we're in decon cleaning. All right, so we can learn the name when we first introduce the people into the department. Hey, this is what the department looked like. We're doing a tour of the department. Everybody's saying, hey, congratulations for being accepted into the program. This is such and such. This is our lead, blah, blah, blah. All right, we are going into decontamination, because what's the purpose of us training the happy-go-lucky, playing with the instruments? They love it. And as soon as they get in decon 4 months later, they say, what the heck is this? And skate. I think the process starts in decontamination. If you don't get that right, it doesn't matter what assembly, what great process you have in place. If you don't get it right in the beginning, the rest of the process is crap. So I want my people to feel the heat, feel the sweat, feel the anxiety, feel the stress, know what it's like when people call out, because this is the reality of our department. Our fault in this field is that everything is sugar-coated. From the speeches that we hear, from some of the conferences, that's why I started my platform, is because I heard all the greatness, but I was like, where did we do that at? Because it's not being done like that.
Well, but I think that's how we challenge how we've always done it. I was thrown in decon at first, and it was a terrible experience, not because it was hot, not because I couldn't hang, but because I didn't feel safe. I didn't know how to don and doff PPE, and they were trying to teach me the why before I knew the how, and then at the same time. And then, you have individuals that are frustrated that they're training yet another new person because they don't have good anchoring. People are experiencing high turnovers. No wonder why people don't want to learn my name in the first 4 months when they think I'm just going to skate out. I think it starts in the investment period where it's like, hey, I want to get to know you because I'd like you to stay. And I don't know if that's necessarily sugarcoating, but treating common decency. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know, man.
So that segues us into what we're talking about today. I heard you say it. I heard Jessie allude to it. So Jesse's hands-on. He's the trainer. He's taking them through the steps. You have a right-hand man that implements what you're doing there. What happens when people don't have that? What happens when they have to pass them off to their Tech 3, Tech 4, whatever they may be called in their departments, whether it be a lead, and when you go back to assess or do the competency, it's not being done to the standard that you have for your department. You have, oh, well, that's the way we've always done it. I.e., let's start with an easy one. And I asked this question a couple of weeks ago, and I had several different answers. And Jesse, I think you referred me to the CDC version of the answer. But since Sarah just said it, let's go with doffing your PPE. What is the correct way? Well, how do you do it in your facility versus what does the book actually say?
You want me to go first, or you want Sarah to go first? Well, here we go. Here's where we go. Donning and doffing. So depending on which book you're reading, okay, because we have HSPA and we have CBSPD. Both of them don their PPEs differently. Okay? HSPA tells you that you put on your gown first. Okay. CBSPD tells you put your shoe covers on first because you're traveling from dirtiest to cleanest. In our facility, we follow CBSPD's guidelines because they are in line with CDC's guidelines. Okay. So that's how we don. So the first thing you don is your shoe covers, then your gown, then your mask, your shield, and your gloves last.
Okay, Sarah.
So like Jessie pointed out, there's so many deviations, right? And I think that the most important way to do it is in line with hospital policy. And I think that's the first step with challenging how we've always done things. So with sterile processing, siloing information, and even with the best grounds for decision making, like you followed CBSPD, you followed HSPA, you've looked at the AAMI standards. What that all boils down to is how effective your facility's policies are in mirroring what's expected because everyone's interpreting it the same way, not the way they've always done it, right? So I think that it's most important that we follow the policies outlined in the facilities. And, you know, I've worked in facilities that have done both, done three. And then have you seen how the nurses don and doff PPE during COVID? That was my favorite. I remember getting the like training videos where they're like, this is how we're donning and doffing the PPEs during COVID. And I was like, girl, we've been doing that since I first started 16 years ago. Like I could have made this video. What's going on? But what coincided was that it all aligned with the facility and we were all doing it the same way.
Now, what happens when you walk in to do that competency and it's not being done the way that you train people to show people how to do it? I.e., well, in Jesse's case, he's showing them his way because that's what he's following. And
he's outlined it in competencies too, right, Jessie?
Like, what was that?
You outline it in your competencies too, right? Like your instructionals. Okay.
Yep. And we have little mannequins and posters on the wall that show you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then dolphin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going in reverse order. So, because we had this conversation not too long ago about donning and doffing, because again, as I'm training students, again, my director is, let me tell you, I got to put her on a pedestal because as she allows me to do what I need to do, as long as I can bring the documentation to back it. Yep. And she'll be like, I'm 100% with it. Now stuff that I want to challenge on her, that's my opinion, that I think that we should do it. She's like, we're not doing that.
Oh, wait a minute. Can we just recognize her for being like, nah, Jessie, you keep that pot real still, my dude. All right.
But keep it in line real quick.
But again, we've had this conversation within technicians that I haven't personally trained compared to the technicians that I have trained,
Mm.
and it's been like a back and forth conversation as to, well, that's, and it comes up, well, we've always done it this way, and it's like, okay, what guidelines are we following? So we all had to sit down, all leadership sat down at the table and like, all right, we need to outline what are we going to do, because some people were following HSPA, the other ones were following the CDC guidelines. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it just makes more sense to me that we
Mm.
put on, it makes more sense. And the data shows that you go from dirtiest to clean. Before you
Right.
put your gloves on, you're supposed to wash your hands and put your gloves on. Why would I touch my shoe covers right before? It's like, make that the first step, put everything on, wash your hands, put your gloves on. It just made more sense from an infection control perspective. And we all sat down and we agreed. Plus, I ain't no spring chicken. So, bending
No,
over with a gown on to put on my shoe covers is a challenge. All right. So I'm going to keep it real. I got to get that part out the way so my blood pressure can stabilize when I'm putting the rest of my stuff on. So
don't
let's
get
keep
up
it
too
real.
quick. Don't get up
So,
too quick, Jesse. All
So,
right.
so if I, and forgive me if I misquote here, but if I'm reading correctly, and in the way that it reads in our HSPA manual for, let's say, doffing, shoe covers first, gloves, and then gown. Explain it. Talk to your listeners. They want to know, why would I take my gloves off to take off the rest of the dirty stuff?
Well, we have to go on that, on that whole basis of it. So you're taking off your dirtiest first, which is your shoe covers, then your gloves, which is the dirtiest. Your
With the
gown is taken off. Your gown is taken off from around your neck. You
mm-hmm,
don't grab the front
mm-hmm.
because the guidelines were written when the gowns were reusable. So the guidelines tell you untie and fold upon itself to contain everything. Then your mask from the back, because your goggles or shield from the back, because that is your protected area. So you're still protecting everything. You're not touching soiled items.
Mm-hmm.
The only time you rip from the front is CDC's new guideline, where you take off gown and gloves off at the same time when you have disposable gowns. So we
And
have
I
to look at when those policies were written.
Right. And like, let's point out the fact that some facilities use two pair of gloves, right? So that's we double glove in my facility. And I can't
Same here.
speak to all the
Yeah,
other
we do.
facilities. So I always like double gloves because you can tell when you have a hole in your other glove and then it offers you a little bit of protection. But then you can take off your gown and everything
With the
accordingly. And we all saw the Corey Offset and Marie Brewer splash study, where it's a false idea that splash just stays in the front of us. It comes to the
Right.
back of us now. So if we're just wearing two pairs of gloves, we don't ever have to worry about that. It's like you take it all off because these gloves are clean as long as you're not touching your shoes. And then you take off the other ones aseptically, which I think is the hardest thing to teach, is teaching professionals how to take off one pair of glove and then use the inside of the other glove to pull. So I think I don't know. I think that's the hardest thing I have training in there. But that process is outlined in the policy. So, and I think that the more that sterile processing professionals are included in this type of infection prevention creation, and the more we lean into the fact that policies are living, breathing documents, you cannot do the set it and forget it. And I know Jesse's a cook, so I know he's against set it and forget it. He likes a slow cook, but he don't like a forget cook, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right, right, right.
So you can't just set these policies and forget these policies and only look at them when they're about to expire, because, like, to Jesse's point, the new CDC guidelines are talking about pop and locking, right? Whereas the other ones are made about reusable gowns, and now you're folding. And don't even get me going into how, like, Corey and Marie's research is going to change the game, because it already has in my space. You know what I mean? So the flexibility and malleability of policies and guidelines is crucial to making sure that how we're training it is how it's evolving and not just how we've always done it, right?
Okay, okay. So,
Yep.
and it's great about the study that was done. You beat me to it. I was going to come back in there, but yeah, you beat me to the study, because that was mind blowing to see the splatter and how just that 3 feet, that
Yes.
3 feet changes everything. Since you
Mhm.
brought up policy, I had somebody send me something I wanted to run by you. policy. Hospital policy as it pertains to fingernails and polish.
Well, listen, man, like, let's be real. I know I made the gross face, but I bite my nails, so I'm no better. Like, the only reason why I don't got to worry about nail polish and fake nails is because I bite mine. They don't have enough of them to put a fake nail on it anyways, even if they wanted to. So that's not something that I usually struggle with. But listen, there's hard lines. There's data that shows bacterial growth under long nails, let alone fake nails, right? With the adhesive and the dip and all of that gel top that's going on. And then the flaking of nail polish is very much a real thing. You can tell I've been wearing nail polish when it's all in my teeth because I'm a nail biter. Like, it's gross, but it's something I'm working on, right? So
Right.
long nails, fingernail polish, it really there's very strong policies in place in my own facility that's straight up like, no, that is not an option. And they also include high profile rings. Like when I got engaged, God bless my husband. I was like, do not get me a big ring if you never want me to wear it, because I'm not going to be able to get it under a glove at work, and I'm not going to be able to wear it at work. It'll be on my nightstand more than it's on my hand. So
Right.
there's just no room for those types of, when there's proof. That's the thing, when there's proven data like Marie and Corey's research, and of course the CDC, when there's data that backs the statement, there's just not a lot of wiggle room, right? I don't know, Jessie, what do you think? Like, when data gets involved, I feel like it makes it like,
I do.
Jessie, hold on real quick. I'm gonna go to commercial, and when we come back, we'll get Jessie's take on the same very topic. I know it's gonna get spicy in the kitchen real quick, so let's go to commercial. We'll hear what Jessie got to say when he come back. All right, welcome back. I want to give a special thanks to Calzura, one of our sponsors. If you haven't seen the shoes, definitely check them out. As I told everybody last week, they've achieved the distinction of being put inside of our one source documents, where you can actually look up the IFUs on how to get them cleaned in your actually go through your washer, and they can be sterilized. Great information out there, so definitely check them out. Jessie, it is time for.
Man, I love speaking about all these topics, man. But it's sometimes I feel like when I speak about it, I do myself more harm than good, because I'm trying to be a voice for the field. I love this field. And Sarah's correct. When there's data there, it's hard to argue it. But the data also shows that we have 100,000 bacteria per square inch of skin. 100,000 bacteria per square inch of skin. And Sarah is a nail biter. The dirtiest part of your body is your mouth. So how different is that than having fake fingernails and nail polish? And if you really think about it, people who get their nails done get manicures more than people who don't. So how much bacteria is under those nails compared to the people who don't? I don't get my nails done at all, and I too am a nail biter. When I get hungry, I go to work on them bad boys, the side of the skin and everything. But again, it's that. Show me the data where the nail polish and the fake fingernails causes an increase to surgical site infections or healthcare associated infections. The worst case scenario with nail polish and fake fingernails is that they chip off and fall into a set. And then that
Eyelashes.
fingernail and that polish winds up in a patient.
Mm.
But if you think about our scrubs as well, they tell you not to put not to put anything in your pockets in your scrubs because it might fall into a set. But they make the scrubs with a pocket. So I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's looking at where these policies and where these standards come from. And I get it. Not even 2 years ago, it was stated that we had to cover all body hair, right? That was an AORN standard. They took that out of the standard because there wasn't enough data to show that the hair caused any problems. So they took that out of the standards. So the biggest problem with hair is that you might not see it and it might wind up in a patient because AST standards tell you that if you find a hair on the sterile field, you don't break down the sterile field. You cover it with a sterile towel and continue going.
Okay.
Well, and I think to challenge that though, like, listen, now I don't stir pots or anything like that. I usually spill cups of coffee. That's about as graceful as I get. But to challenge that, I think that making sure that, you know, there's so much challenging in, like, what about these gloves on assembly? Like, why don't people wear gloves on assembly, right? For the same reason, like, why aren't we covering our hands? Because it's technically safe, right? So it's like, how consistently are these policies, or not policies, are these standards that are coming out through rigorous testing, are they coming out too slow to mirror the evolution? So I know the whole talk is about fingernail polish and everything like that, but what about eyelashes? Like, eyelashes aren't mentioned, but that's a thing. Like, you know, I've worked in not my current facility, but in the past I had worked in different places that eyelashes were an issue. We literally had a technician that opened an autoclave and the eyelashes started to melt because of the heat coming out. That's insane. And that becomes a personal safety issue, you know? So I think that when there's baseline standards for not having any type of fake fingernail polish, fake eyelashes, and I can't say fake hair or hair extensions because usually that's under a bonnet, right? We hope, right?
We hope.
That you have a big enough bonnet to, you know, I hope that your facility provides you with a big enough bonnet to put all of your hair under. And if it doesn't, please advocate for yourself in that space. But, you know, wearing jackets to mirror almost the type of wear that a surgical techs are wearing, or that they're wearing in core in the OR, making sure that we're all doing the same thing at the same time is going to make sure we have that consistency with bacteria and staph, like Loane, look, it's right up on the screen. Like Loane said, staph infections, bacteria, and staphylococcus. Like, I know that vaccines have made me so healthy, but I swear it's because I'm a nail biter that I just don't get that sick. My body is constantly fighting off dumb stuff because we're nail biters. You know what I mean? So, but it's true. And as far as like the mouth being the dirtiest place aspect, I challenge that the phone is the dirtiest thing in our department. But my facility still wears masks. So we're even wearing masks all the time. So I guess that's kind of covered there.
So I heard you say about gloves and jewelry. That's another taboo topic. Do they wear jewelry in SPD? Do you let them wear the gloves to cover up their rings that they don't want to take off? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so high profile rings are discouraged, but the language used is should not. And I know this is Jessie's favorite part, so I probably just like threw cayenne pepper and covered it up before it boiled over. But the language is should not, and so they could wear gloves. You know, it's up to, like, as an educator, my space is to provide all the information so that management can make the correct decision that fits the outlines of the bodies of the staff to achieve patient safety. I am not informal leadership. I'm not formal leadership. I'm supportive leadership. I'm that neutral space that provides the information and puts the hard stop on the musts, ought to, and need to terminology. So can I give my opinion on it? Absolutely. And you know, Jessie and I hang out, so we both give our opinions very sternly and very proactively.
I like it.
You know, so but it's a delicate spot in the educator role with providing the information, giving my opinion, and then dealing with the situation where it's like, well, this is a should, it's not a must.
All right, so just real quick, somebody asked, disposable bonnets or cloth, which one is appropriate? I would say for my hospital, if the bonnet or cap is hospital laundered, then they are allowed to wear them.
Hmm.
But since in SPD, I have given them all disposable. So, I mean, the language is there, but for my particular SPD, I use disposable. What do you do, Jesse?
We allow cloth bonnets, but it have to be covered with a disposable bonnet. So
Okay.
basically, it's disposable bonnets. You can
Okay.
look cute all you want, just put that bonnet on. All right.
Jesse, did we just agree? Jesse, did we just agree on something?
Hey, yeah, look, it
I like
happened.
to get, I like
It
to
happened twice.
Oh my God!
get. We got one that everybody agrees on. Okay, I like that one. I like that one.
Where
Yeah,
is the bomb? Where is
I'm
the?
just throwing out different ones that everybody's been dealing with, and another one that came across: the cracking the door for 15 minutes. Is it a thing or is it not a thing? Let's talk
What's
about
the what's the IFU say? There's still
Oh,
sterilized. There's still sterilizers that have that written into their IFU. And I'm going to tell you right now, in facilities that I've worked at, um, engineering designs have been very poor where they'll put sterilizers right next to vents. So if you crack that door open really quick next to a vent, guess what you're going to get with your sterile load when you take it out. So
right.
cracking that door is the cracking of the door is designed for the acclimation of the temperature in the room. So if the IFU states it in your sterilizer, and if your hospital policy states that you do it, 15 minutes, crack that door. Now, modern sterilizers take that out of there with more intricate drying times and venting. But again, what's your engineering? Where you putting your sterilizers at? And what's the temperature of your room? Are you following those guidelines with the temperature in the room? If your temperature in your room is really cold, and I did a study with some of my containers where our prep and pack room is freezing cold, way colder than our decon area. So
yo, that's always the fact. That's always the fact. Like, can I get some more coolness in decon? No, I'm just
yeah. So you go ahead and crack that door open really quick if you want and pull that load out. You most likely are going to have an issue.
So I know that some facilities have the automatic, and when it cracks, it automatically takes the load out. So if it's IFU driven, what I'm hearing is IFU driven. If the sterilizer says you could crack it, then you crack it. But the facility, in a sense, would have some kind of policy in place that states what you should or shouldn't do regardless.
Right. And sometimes policies are hard to make at that level, especially in healthcare systems that cover multiple facilities that are of different sizes, have different types of autoclaves. So it really speaks to this zipper effect that occurs with the FDA, right? Your regulatory, and then you have your policies, and then you have your department guidelines, and then you have your standard works, and then you have your best practices, and then you have your competencies, and they make this zipper that build on top of each other. So you have to be able, and what's the use of a zipper if you can only pull it up? It's got to be able to pull down, right? Or you're not getting out. Like, you're gonna be stuck in your outfit the whole night, right? So making sure that when policies can't be available, you create department guidelines that are a go-to, so we don't have to use best interpretation of a standard or our best attempt to understand a practice, right? They always have this touch point that says, this is what we're doing in the facility. If you need support, this is how the manager can support you because these are what we've outlined, right?
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And listen, Kenneth, I know you've seen a ton of departments, right? And can't you always tell when a sterile processing professional is not included in the new designs of a department?
Every single time.
Right? Like Jessie was showing the videos of his facility and stuff, like them building it. And I was like, oh my God, you can tell sterile processing was in that room at that table when they drew out those designs. Cause it was just like.
So Jessie brought it up, so I'm gonna bring it up again. Somebody asked, exactly what is a wet load?
A wet load by
It's
definition of the standard. A wet load by definition of the standard is when more than two or more items in a load is wet. Okay, one or more. I'm sorry, one or more items in your load, in your complete load, is wet. One package that has moisture on it is not considered a wet load. It is a wet pack. Okay, so we need to define that. And again, what does that state? If you find a wet pack, then you open up another package in the load to ensure that it's not a wet load, because it's not always a visual, it's a confirmation.
Okay.
I love that. It's not a visual, it's a confirmation.
So,
Dude,
so
you
we're
should get
saying,
that on a shirt.
I know, right?
I would wear that.
That's gonna be the newest shirt. It's not a visual; it's a confirmation. I like
love
it, Jessie.
that.
I love it. I love it.
I love that.
So you're saying when we crack the door, it's sat for 15 minutes. We pull the load out, and I see droplets on a wrapped set. That's not considered a wet load.
No. You have to first find out what was your configuration of your load. Where was that wet pack? Where was that wrap at? Did you place a rack with peel packs above that? So now you have another metal item above your wrapped items. Okay. What was your load content in there? Were your packages overweight? Did you exceed the weight limit of that sterilizer? There's a chain of questions you have to ask. You can't just assume right off the bat. You see that package, you open it up and the droplets are only on the outside of that package and not inside. You open up another package to confirm. All right, what am I seeing here? Am I seeing a wet load, or did I see droplets because my configuration to my load was incorrect? And where was that package at? Was it in the front of the sterilizer or the back of the sterilizer? So when you cracked that door, was it actually a crack, or did you open that door all the way open?
I hate the door being open a crack, and like I hate that. And it's like, dude, it went for the dry time. Okay, like just take it out. It's almost as bad as saying I'm going to run this on a 60-minute dry, even though it says 40-minute dry, just to be sure. No. Take it out. Like that's me anyway. So that's me. I hate that crack door stuff.
Right. So I mean, and again, these are all just answers or questions that people may have to, just talk about it. I have a question here from Miss Veronica. It says, a couple of days ago, there was a popcorn found in a tray while the setup. How do you handle that? Some people bring in bottles of water because the fountain is too far away. How do you handle that? How do you handle these things in your departments or in your areas?
That makes me wonder, Jessie, do you think it was a kernel before it got cooked and then it popped?
They probably tried to, see, is it gonna pop in the sterilizer? Can I pop popcorn in the sterilizer?
That was a test that we can see if it can be done. That's all.
Right. What came first, the kernel or the? Anyways.
Yeah, it's a lot of standards and policies. I am always willing to challenge. I always ask why. Why do we do this way? Why do we do this way? But eating in the department and drinking in the department is not tolerated. That is a no-no. Okay, that is a no-no. Okay, if you want water, ask for water and go take a walk. Okay, most of us can benefit, including me, from a nice little short walk. Okay, get them steps in.
But what if my water bottle has a screw top on it though?
I don't care.
No. So it's not the anatomy of it. Yeah.
It does not belong in the department. Okay. It does not. It's water. Again, you're putting your mouth on there. You're probably spitting back in that water bottle. That water bottle falls on the table.
Right.
All you're gonna do is right next to a set, and you think in your head, oh, it's just water. It's just water. Just wipe it up. What's the harm of water? Yeah, water's big harm. Okay, water is a source of nutrients for microorganisms. Okay,
right? Because what do all microbials need? Right? Like, what are some of the things that we're testing for in our autoclaves to make sure we're destroying microbial life? Right? Moisture, Some need light, some are aerobic, some are anaerobic. And let's face it, when you're in the cleanest area, I noticed that we're going to talk about EVS, so I said cleanest. When we're in the cleanest area of the department, only the strongest will survive. That's why so many people think that, well, I can't believe I got an infection or a surgical site infection or an HAI, right? A hospital acquired infection. It's hard to believe because it's supposed to be the cleanest space. It is also the most dangerous because of the glutaraldehydes, the quats, the different environmental cleaners that we're using. Only the strongest will be left. That's why we use Geobacillus stereothermophilus to test our sterilizers, because this spore does not mess around. And do you think just because you screw your water bottle on tight enough that that's going to be enough? It's not. It's not enough.
So given what she's asking, if we find those type of things, is that straight into progressive discipline, or if the policy states no food is no food?
That's right. And again, it's conversations that you have to have with your staff. I don't believe in just writing somebody up. You have to coach people. Then you have to give them, a verbal. And then and you got to follow whatever your hospital's policy and guidelines are for discipline. And again, but you have to follow that. You have to follow that, because if you're not holding people accountable, what's the point?
But I also think we need more plain language, and I'm happy that they actually included it into the new the updates with the AMES T79, where they literally had to write no food can be in decon, right? Like right under where you can't have fans, you can't have open windows, like you can't do these things in decon, because what that does, and I know, and I saw on LinkedIn that really bothered some people, like, wow, I can't believe you have to say that. It's not that you can't believe you have to say it, but it must be said if it is going to be an expectation that we follow. So that's clear, plain language allows for, especially to Jessie's point, making sure that management can follow the type of progressive remediation or write-ups that they need to, right? So, and I know that in my role as the education coordinator, I have to make sure it's said so that the manager can do what they need to do when there is conscious non-compliance to what is already made very clear, right? Because we don't think that people just come in to do a bad job, right? And that includes eating and drinking, right? So, but is it unconscious? Are they aware of it? Or we can determine that using plain language and making those things available. So they're consciously choosing not to do that. And that's what makes the manager's jobs easier, collaborating with the education in that way.
Okay. So just random topics. In the standard, if it says SPD needs to be terminally clean as if it's like your OR every night, does it happen? We're gonna go to commercial. When we come back, I want to know, does the terminal clean happen? Should it be happening? And what really happens? After commercial, we'll talk about it.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.
Welcome back. Again, big shout out to Calzura. Big thanks to Knowledge of Nonsense and my special guest here today. Right before the commercial, we talked about, or the question was asked, terminal cleaning of sterile processing. What really happens when you get your EVS people involved? Do you have that EVS support to say that your cleaning is being done? Do you have confidence that it's being done?
I mean, I know cleaning's getting done, but I can't speak to the level of cleaning. And that's not just like site specific. That's just my
Right.
general sweeping, pun intended. That's my general sweeping impression of cleaning in the department. I'm sorry. This is, thank God. God bless my husband. All right. So that's my general impression of EVS involvement in sterile processing. But I also think that might be because of centralization or lack thereof. Like we're seeing it a lot with our scopes, you know, people playing an outside role in the reprocessing of scopes, and, you know, lack of centralization serves to show deviation in processes. And that wouldn't change, that wouldn't be any different in our EVS. So I would be more interested into what their cleaning of sterile processing pertains to. Is it just limited to the items in the storage closet? They know they can't use them anywhere else, and they know they change the garbage, but like what else is their training program like? But that might just be like the nerd in me, you know, so we can get nerdy.
So what does that like? So Jesse, in that same question, is there a checklist of what you expect of a terminal clean, or is it just a daily, weekly, or monthly type clean?
Honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm gonna keep it real. In every facility I've ever been to, no, I've never seen a checklist. Every facility, no, there isn't. There isn't. They just go in there. I mean, the most I've ever seen done in a facility is that the floors get waxed and scrubbed in decontamination, but they're probably using the same machine that they use throughout the whole hospital. So I'm gonna keep it real. It's no checklist. There is no specified training that I know of for them to be entering decon to do this terminal cleaning. So no, I'm not confident that it's getting done. I'm not confident that there's a checklist or any special circumstances outside of anywhere in the hospital. Now, the level of cleaning of expectation is what's supposed to be being done in the OR rooms. But
Bingo.
have we seen what that cleaning looks like? Because I was a scrub tech. It ain't that great. Okay, it ain't that great.
Well, and then
So,
I think that leans into this idea that it's like almost like a systemic issue, like it's a system-wide origin-based problem and concern, right? Like, and Sean's alluding to on the screen, the partnership with EVS is so critical. And, you know, a lot of the times when we talk about interdepartmental or cross-professional collaborations, we think directly with the OR or nurses or CSTs, right? So it's these, I don't want to call them untraditional, but these lesser seen, less visible roles that we suffer from in sterile processing. We're a less visible role. So we can only imagine what's happening. There are, you know, they suffer the same struggles that we do because they're also not seen. But if they don't work effectively, then we all suffer, right? So I almost relate to them like empathy, I try to raise empathy in that space just because I know sterile processing experiences so much of the same issues that environmental service professionals do, whereas they're just expected to do it because they should just know how to do it, right? Like it's that whole like common sense thing. So
and I mean, I can relate to them because prior to me becoming a sterile processing tech, I was a sanitarian manager for, 8 years. So I traveled the country cleaning up facilities. I worked for the Kellogg company, cleaning their facilities up and making sure that they were terminally clean and ready for the next production line. So we had extensive training in chemical handling and, how to clean certain surfaces. And, we had certain restrictive areas. So, I mean, we were, let me tell you something. When I say they didn't play with the cross contamination, you didn't play with cross contamination over there. So wherever you were producing, food, if you're going into a general area, you darn near had to like go through a whole sanitation step from top to bottom to go in there. So they didn't play when it came to the cleaning process. So, and I think that is the same thing that we should be applying in the medical field, because if we're talking, we're the dirtiest area in the hospital.
Right. So is that partnership that we talk about, is that just say like the frontline director manager partnering with the frontline director manager from EVS and coming up with this to make it work for everybody? Because yes, you could have that just general cleaning where I'm emptying the trash or I'm sweeping the floor. But what about the terminal cleaning? If it's not happening, that's a cause for concern. But who owns that piece?
Yeah, and I think that that points out something really big because a lot of the times you don't know it's not happening until it's cited that it's not happening. Like I feel like
Okay.
Sean and I are hanging out because he's referencing the Joint Commission, and it may just be because I just went through my Joint Commission walkthrough, no citations, woo woo. Anyways, so like it's one of those things where it's like you're not realizing it's not happening almost until it's too late and you should be doing something about it. And that doesn't have to be as severe as a Joint Commission walkthrough. It could literally be you see dust
Right.
accumulating on the top of your shelves, you see dust on the top of your autoclaves, right? So I don't it could be as simple as a cross department collaboration between management and making sure training is getting done. I've fortunately had the luxury to offer in services to environmental service professionals, letting them know like what sterile processing does, and even showing them in our book that, I mean, especially in the CBSPD book, and it's mentioned in the HSPA book, dust is an issue. It's
Yes.
consistently cited. It comes from our skin. It can come from a variety of. It comes from hair. Like dust is inevitable. Wherever there are people or animals, there will be dust. So it's offering that insight to say, hey, like I see you. We talk about it in this space. Let me give you some education about that. And then even helping management and EVS understand what we need from them, making clear quality assurance or quality management systems so we're speaking the same language is also
Yes.
crucial in that. However big you want to make it, if you guys aren't speaking the same language and end goals, it doesn't matter, right? So
Yes. So, in saying all of that, this is going to be a sensitive subject for a lot of people.
mm,
We talk about what happens in just different facilities across, just let's say the world, the nation. Is it ever possible, or do you think it would be possible at some point that somebody did ask about a formal training program that encompasses everybody doing exactly the same thing? Because we talk about this is the way we always do it. You train your way, Jesse trains his way. I have a training program. I saw Arlene in the comment. She has a training program. Sean may have a training program. All these people have their own version of the training.
mm.
Is it possible? Will we get to where we're all formally training the same exact way?
I'm gonna answer that with a question. Do you fry chicken the same way everybody fry chicken? Do you
The cook,
cook
the
do you
cooking
cook rice the same way everybody
chicken
cook rice?
I make mine in
I'm
an
Do
abusive pot.
and then here's the other one. Do you drive the speed limit like the law says you should?
No, I
no,
don't.
no, no.
It'll
So
never happen. It'll never happen. You know why? And this is where I have my gripe with it. That language of should, we can't even follow the language of must, let alone should.
Mm,
We have IFUs that state we must do a specific process, and not one facility I've ever been to, and I've just posted up a video, and not one individual showed me what was wrong with the video. Oh, that looks great. No, it was all the way wrong.
mm,
All the way wrong. Because the IFU says I must clean it outside of its original container.
mm.
Must, not should, not could, not maybe. Must.
and that's why this is the important part of this conversation.
Hmm.
There are many things that happen on a daily like that. How do we combat that? How do we get to the root of that part? If not a formal training where everybody's doing something similar or the same, and you say that plain language, the should versus the must, how do we get everybody on the same page of the must?
Well, I think there, and I know that a lot of people have heard me say hope is not a strategy, right? So we can't just hope it's going to happen. We actually have to build out a plan to do it. And I think that there is hope for this because I see it strategically being applied in other countries. Consistency, the removal of unnecessary dry time or over cumbersome IFUs. If you look at some of the reprocessing practices in Europe or even in Germany, oh my God, in Japan, if you get a chance to see Japan's reprocessing, I mean, I really like Japanese culture, so I may be biased, but I know that it's possible to streamline these and have consistency in that base because I see it happening in other countries. Now, I can't say what their magic sauce is. Obviously, there's different types of government, there's different geographical locations. You know, some of them have the nationwide healthcare. It's not necessarily a corporation. Does that play into it? I know that the best thing that we can do in our space is we have to get involved with work groups that build these policies. We have to make our facilities open to become part of the data testing. We can't be scared to have someone do research in our space and continue to silo all the good things that we have because we're scared of being exposed. This is the only way that we are going to make sure that industry professionals without ulterior motives are helping to create how we do our job. Okay. And when you hear about the statistic ratio, and listen, I don't got anything against anybody in companies. Like, listen, like, because if I didn't have Bowie Dick test, I wouldn't be able to test my autoclave. So obviously I need the company, right? But when there is a huge deficit of front end users in these spaces, we lose out. And I can't say that that's what's happening nationwide or on a global spectrum, but there's a reason why there's the World Federation of Healthcare Sterilization Services, and they spell sterilization with an S, not a Z. Okay, so looking into that space, what's happening internationally that we can pull in this way, and a lot of it I think has to do with the baseline of how our healthcare facilities and our whole healthcare is built up and our action in it.
I have to agree with you, Sarah, 100%. We're agreeing twice on this
Oh
one,
my
girl.
God, yeah.
We're agreeing twice. I just think that I just think that, you know, it's the way things are done is just we just don't have the manpower to be able to do things the way we should be doing it. It's just we're always pressed it. You know, when I see it all the time. You know, we build our sets and here comes a brand new doctor and they want new instruments in that set. They add, but they never subtract. You know, we add more cases, but we never add more space or more manpower to cover that. And we're doing work that's, you know, inclining every single time, but our manpower stays the same. You know, Hank, you know, shout out to Hank Bosch from Beyond Clean.
Beyond Clean Day.
He
Happy
said it.
anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
He said it a couple months ago in this podcast he had. If you have 4 washers and you have 50 loaners in your decon and you're able to process those 50 loaners through in that day's time, you're cutting corners. It shouldn't be able to be done. But yet, no matter how short a department is, how many call outs you get, you rarely hear that anybody canceled a case or delayed a case. Everything still started on time. How is that possible? How is that possible? I've worked at a facility, my first facility. We started out with 8 people at night shift and then increased the workload to 30 people at night shift. The work was getting done the same way with 8 people that we were doing with 30 people. How is that possible? How is that possible?
Sadness, burnout, frustration.
A lot of shortcuts. A lot of shortcuts.
A lot of shortcuts.
A lot of shortcuts, man. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. A lot of shortcuts, a lot of non-compliances, a lot of saying that, hey, we got to get this work done. Let's get it done. I mean, come on. It's crazy. Throughout every facility, we can all point out our faults. We can all look at it and say, oh, well, why are you doing it like that? Or why is it being done this way? It's just so much being thrown at our plate. And as humans, the human factor is that we're going to figure a way out to get this done.
Hey,
that's the human factor.
I appreciate both of you. I think we learned a lot about what, as a whole, we can do toward, as Sarah said, hoping for that brighter day. The conversation, loved it. This was our episode, standards versus what happens in reality. We know that a lot of things are being done that shouldn't be done, but it's up to us as leaders, educators, to get people into that mode of doing the right thing. Love Sarah's shirt. Hey, we're not doing it that way no more. The
Nope.
Savage came up to play today. The Savage showed up. He was in the kitchen stirring the pot. I love it. Um, Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate everybody that comes on this platform. I actually have a special treat for you next week. I'm being very transparent. I am going to step out of my role and I'm going to invite my own leadership team here to talk to you about their experiences thus far because they're all new. It's going to be a treat for everybody. You get to just ask them questions without my influence. See, I wouldn't even be there to ask questions. So thank you for joining us in this. And hey, see you next week on Time to Talk. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.